Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a time when humans roamed the earth in small, scattered tribes and wolves were both feared and revered. Picture yourself standing beside an ancient campfire, the glow flickering across your face, a low growl cuts through the night air, and a pair of glowing eyes stare back at you from the shadows. It's not a nightmare, but a real encounter. In the early days of human history, wolves were both our adversaries and companions. They had a presence so powerful, you probably won't survive this encounter without the right instincts. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time. Let's see where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world of our ancient ancestors was vast and unknown. Yet, in the midst of this untamed wilderness, humans had an unlikely ally, the wolf. It wasn't always this way. Wolves, with their sharp teeth and growls, were once a symbol of danger, but slowly, over time, this fear morphed into something far more complex. Humans, with all their primitive tools and fire, were not so different from wolves in the eyes of these wild canines. The question that still lingers is, how did this partnership begin? The most widely accepted theory suggests that it started with a common goal: survival. Wolves, in search of food, may have followed early humans as they scavenged the land, attracted by the remains of their hunts. Humans, too, were no strangers to the dangers of the wilderness, and perhaps there was a quiet understanding between the two species. But the real question remains, did wolves approach humans, sensing an opportunity, or did humans, through their own cleverness, begin to tame the wolves? Historians are still divided on this matter. Some believe humans made the first move, offering food in exchange for the wolves' protection. Others argue that wolves, attracted to human settlements, slowly made their way into the human fold. Regardless of who started the relationship, one thing is clear. From that moment onward, wolves and humans began a journey together that would last thousands of years. As the days turned into years and the years into centuries, this primal bond began to change. The wild animals that once lurked on the fringes of our camps slowly became part of our families. Little did early humans know that these creatures, with their intelligent eyes and fierce loyalty, would eventually become the dogs we know and love today. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's look at the first encounter, where it all began. There you are, still by the fire, the warmth of the flames licking at your skin. Suddenly, there's movement, a rustle in the underbrush. Your heart beats faster as a wolf steps into the clearing, its eyes locked on you. You freeze. It's not growling. In fact, there's no hostility in its posture at all. It's curious, maybe even hungry, but not threatening. In this moment, something crucial happens. A connection forms. Fragile yet powerful. Wolves have always been opportunistic. They don't waste energy on unnecessary battles if they don't have to. And here, they see something: humans, who, just like them, are predators with the same need for food and shelter. Early humans might have seen this as a moment of danger. After all, wolves were top predators, capable of taking down prey much larger than themselves. But there was something else that the wolves saw: an opportunity. An opportunity to work together, if only for a short while. Historians still argue whether the wolves approached humans willingly, lured by food scraps or the warmth of the fire, or whether humans, in their budding cleverness, saw the potential in wolves and invited them closer. Either way, it was a fateful meeting. This was not a simple exchange of food for protection. It was the beginning of a deeper partnership, one that would gradually evolve into something more complex and mutually beneficial. You might think it's absurd that a wolf would trust a human, but wolves aren't just wild beasts, they are social animals. They live in packs, bound by a structure of cooperation and mutual benefit. And in those first encounters, something clicked. Wolves were not just predators, they were part of a social group with its own rules and dynamics. So when they began to spend more time near humans, they weren't just freeloading, they were beginning to understand something vital. Humans, like wolves, could be trusted allies. Wolves likely observed humans' ability to hunt, to make tools, to defend themselves from other animals, and they thought, maybe these humans can be useful. The key moment here is not just the exchange of food, it's the shift in perception. Wolves began to look at humans as something more than a threat. They were potential partners. This wasn't a moment of immediate taming. There was no leash, no dog bed by the fire, but it was the seed that would one day grow into the loyal companionship we see with dogs today. As wolves and humans began to coexist in this fragile yet promising relationship, something changed in the wolves themselves. As they spent more time near human settlements, they adapted to a new lifestyle, one that involved less hunting in the wild and more scavenging and cooperation with humans. In return, humans found themselves protected, with wolves alerting them to dangers like other predators. Slowly, the wolves that stuck around began to exhibit different behaviors from their wild cousins. They were less fearful, more tolerant of human presence, and perhaps even curious about the humans they shared the firelight with. And so, the first step in transforming wolves into dogs was taken, though neither species could yet have imagined the incredible journey that lay ahead. But the next step, the one that would truly change everything, was about to unfold. The fire burns low, and the night feels still. But the world around you is anything but quiet. Somewhere, a wolf howls, its voice carrying across the dark expanse of the wild. There's a sense of connection between the howl and the flicker of the firelight. It's a reminder of the thin line between predator and companion, of how, in the early days, wolves were feared and revered in equal measure. You see, in the beginning, wolves weren't just companions, they were symbols of danger. To early humans, wolves were the ultimate predators, fast, cunning, and capable of overpowering their prey. Wolves didn't just hunt, they hunted in packs, using their intelligence and coordination to bring down animals much larger than themselves. Early humans, too, were predators, but they lacked the speed and raw strength of wolves. Their tools, stone and bone, gave them an advantage, but it was still a risky business living in a world dominated by powerful creatures like wolves. Historians still argue whether humans always feared wolves or whether the relationship with them was more nuanced. One thing is certain, wolves were seen as both a threat and a symbol of strength, power, and survival. In fact, many ancient cultures viewed wolves as sacred or divine creatures. The Romans, for example, believed that the wolf was a symbol of Mars, the god of war. Meanwhile, Norse mythology celebrated the wolf as a creature of chaos and change, with wolves like Fenrir playing pivotal roles in the cosmos. In these societies, the wolf wasn't just a beast to be feared, it was a figure woven into the very fabric of human history. But fear isn't a one-way street. While early humans feared wolves, they also saw something they admired in these animals: loyalty, strength, and the ability to work together. Wolves lived in tight-knit packs, where cooperation and trust were essential to survival. This made them both terrifying and fascinating. As much as wolves were enemies, they also embodied a social structure that humans could learn from, a structure that would, in time, become the foundation of the partnership between humans and dogs. This shift didn't happen overnight. The first domesticated wolves weren't immediately seen as pets or helpers. They were still wild animals, lingering on the fringes of human settlements. Their presence tolerated but not entirely trusted. They were neither fully domesticated nor entirely wild. They were somewhere in between, much like the ancient humans themselves. But that delicate balance began to tip. Over generations, certain wolves started showing different behaviors. They became less aggressive, more tolerant of humans, and more willing to approach the warmth of the fire. These wolves weren't just surviving, they were starting to thrive in their new human centered environment. Meanwhile, humans began to notice these changes and perhaps started to recognize the potential these animals held. Over time, these wolves, those who had adapted to human presence, began to form the first tenuous bonds with humans, becoming a part of early human society in ways no one could have predicted. And with that first bond, the transformation from predator to companion had begun. Though neither species fully understood the enormity of the change that was taking place, the fire crackles, and the cool night air settles around you like a blanket. The wolf, sitting just beyond the glow of the flames, eyes you cautiously. It's neither running away in fear nor lunging for your throat. It's just there, watching. A simple, unspoken agreement seems to pass between you. This is not the beginning of a hunt. This is the beginning of something else, something more profound. As the nights pass, wolves continue to edge closer, their curiosity outweighing their instinct to avoid human settlements. At first, their presence is tolerated, even if they are only scavengers, picking at scraps left behind by the humans. But there's a growing understanding between the two species. Humans are learning how to hunt, to make fire, to craft tools, while wolves are becoming more adept at surviving in the human-dominated world. What was once a relationship of fear and suspicion begins to evolve into something more cooperative. As each species benefits from the other's presence, you might be wondering, how exactly did this happen? Was it purely an act of cooperation? Or was there something more at play here? The truth is, historians are still debating how this transition occurred. Some believe that humans invited wolves into their campfires, offering food in exchange for protection. Others think that wolves were the ones to approach first, sensing an opportunity to scavenge for food more easily than they could in the wild. Either way, the bond began to form. As the wolves grew more accustomed to human life, they began to act differently. No longer were they the fierce, wild hunters that kept their distance. They started to show traits of domestication. They became more docile, more trusting, and more attuned to human behavior. They began to approach humans not just for food, but also for companionship. In return, humans saw the benefits of having these wild creatures nearby. Wolves, with their keen senses and ability to track prey, helped early humans in their hunts, warning them of danger and even guiding them toward larger game. It was a quiet partnership, formed not out of explicit intent, but through an unspoken agreement that both parties had something to offer. This early partnership was not just about protection or hunting, it was about mutual respect. Humans began to see the value in wolves, not just as predators, but as helpers, the wolves. In turn, realized that humans could offer them something no other species could: food, warmth, and safety. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was the beginning of a deep, mutual understanding that would last for millennia. But the relationship was still tenuous. Wolves were not yet dogs. They were still wild creatures, not fully integrated into human society. However, the seeds of domestication had been sown, and over time, they would grow into something far greater. As the firelight flickered, you could sense that both humans and wolves were changing. Something remarkable was happening. Even if no one could fully understand it yet, the night grows deeper, and the fire crackles softly as the warmth of the flames pushes back the cold. The wolves, drawn closer now, are no longer the distant figures of fear that once stalked the edges of your campfire. They've become more than just scavengers. They've become something else: partners, helpers, even companions. This subtle shift, this quiet transformation, marks the beginning of a profound bond between humans and wolves. No longer just a creature to be feared, the wolf has become a fixture in the human world. Yet, how exactly did this change occur? Was it something humans did? Or was it the wolves that changed first? Historians still argue over the specifics, but one thing is clear. It was a gradual, mutual process. Over time, wolves began to change in ways that would make them more compatible with human life. It wasn't just about scavenging for food, it was about adapting to a new way of life. The key moment in this transformation lies in the simple, quiet exchange between human and wolf. Humans, in their struggle to survive, were always looking for new ways to hunt and protect themselves. Wolves, with their keen senses and hunting prowess, became valuable allies. In return, humans provided food, often in the form of meat from their kills, or scraps left behind after a meal. This exchange wasn't a transaction in the modern sense, but a slow, organic shift toward cooperation. But it wasn't just about food. Wolves began to demonstrate new behaviors, ones that aligned more closely with human needs. They became less aggressive, less fearful, more tolerant of human presence. This shift in behavior was crucial, for it was this very adaptation that would lay the foundation for domestication. The wolves that became more attuned to humans, more social in their interactions, were the ones that stayed close to the settlements, and over time, they began to form relationships with humans that went beyond mere survival. The earliest signs of this transformation were subtle. Wolves didn't just become pets overnight. They were still wild animals, and their instincts were still very much present. But as the years passed, these wolves began to exhibit traits that would later define domesticated dogs. Traits like loyalty, affection, and a willingness to work alongside humans. This was the birth of what we would eventually call the dog. But this process wasn't without its challenges. Even as wolves adapted to human life, they were still wolves, and their instincts often led them into conflict with humans. It wasn't a smooth road to domestication. There were dangers along the way. Some wolves were still too wild, too unpredictable, and they were driven away or killed. Others, however, were more adaptable, more willing to compromise, and it was these wolves that became the foundation of our relationship with dogs. This slow transformation wasn't just about domestication, it was about mutual benefit. Humans didn't just tame wolves, they worked with them, learning from their hunting strategies, their social structures, and their pack dynamics. The wolves, in turn, learned to trust humans, seeing them not as predators, but as partners. The first dogs weren't just tools for hunting or guarding. They were part of the fabric of human life, sharing in both the dangers and the rewards of survival. And so, the bond that began with the first cautious approach to the fire grew stronger, transforming wolves into the companions we know today. The fire flickers as the night deepens, and the stars above seem to watch over this strange, evolving partnership. The wolves, now closer than ever, begin to show more signs of domestication. Their once fierce and independent nature is slowly being replaced by something more familiar to you, something that feels like trust. The wolves are no longer just lurking in the shadows. They are present in the circle of warmth, living side by side with humans. Yet, it's still hard to see them as anything but wild creatures, remnants of the savage world that existed before civilization. But what exactly makes a wolf shift from wild to tame? What triggers the change from the fierce, free-roaming predator to the loyal companion we know as a dog? The answer lies in genetics, a slow, invisible transformation that would take thousands of years to unfold. Historians still debate when exactly the genetic divergence between wolves and dogs occurred, but it is generally agreed that it was a gradual process, driven by selective behaviors that favored more sociable, less aggressive wolves. You might not have realized it, but domestication wasn't a single event. It wasn't a moment when humans suddenly decided to tame the wolves. Instead, it was a continuous process where over generations, wolves that exhibited more docile traits, less aggression, more cooperation with humans, were the ones that thrived. These wolves, more likely to stay near human settlements and interact with humans, passed on their gentler traits. Over time, this shift began to show up in their genetics, subtly changing their behavior and physiology. And here's where it gets interesting. Those genetic changes didn't just affect the wolves' behavior, they also affected their physical traits. Over thousands of years, wolves that were closer to humans began to show smaller skulls, different teeth, and even less ferocious jaw muscles. Their coats changed, too, as they adapted to a more domesticated lifestyle. Over time, these wolves became physically different from their wild counterparts, and the gap between the wolf and the dog began to grow wider. But it wasn't just about change in looks. The domesticated wolves began to develop different social structures. Well, they started to form closer, more symbiotic relationships with humans, living in smaller packs that were more reliant on cooperation with humans than with other wolves. Wolves began to look to humans for food, shelter, and protection, and humans, in turn, began to see the value of having these creatures around. It wasn't just a one-sided relationship, it was a partnership built on mutual benefit, one that would continue to evolve. This slow transformation marked the beginning of a new chapter in the story of wolves and humans. As the years passed, the relationship between the two species became more intertwined. No longer simply predators and prey, wolves began to show signs of the loyalty, affection, and companionship that would eventually define dogs. The domesticated wolves that had become accustomed to human life were the ancestors of the dogs we know and love today. The process was slow and gradual, but over time, the bond between human and wolf would grow into one of the strongest partnerships in history. So, as you sit by the fire, watching the wolves that have now become dogs, you can see the transformation in front of you. It's not instantaneous, it's not flashy, but it's real, a gradual shift that, over the course of thousands of years, would change the course of human and canine history forever. The fire burns steady now, casting a warm glow over the small gathering. The wolves have settled into their new roles. No longer just wild creatures lurking in the shadows, but active participants in the lives of the humans around the fire. There's a quiet understanding between the two species now. Humans, still driven by survival, have come to rely on the wolves in ways they didn't expect, and the wolves have begun to see humans as partners, offering them the very things they need most: food, safety, and shelter. This mutual exchange, this back and forth that had begun so simply, was starting to bear fruit. Humans and wolves were working together in ways that neither could have anticipated. Humans, for their part, had begun to realize that wolves were more than just scavengers. They were also incredibly skilled hunters, with acute senses that could be invaluable in locating prey. Wolves could track animals across vast distances, their keen noses picking up scents that humans could not detect. In return, humans offered food, meat from their kills, scraps from their meals, and, perhaps most importantly, a sense of security. Historians often argue about whether the wolves were drawn to humans out of necessity, or whether they were simply opportunistic creatures that saw a chance to exploit the human environment. Some scholars suggest that the wolves saw humans as an easy source of food, and that was the primary motivator for their initial approach. Others argue that it was the mutual protection offered by both species, humans providing shelter from the elements, wolves offering protection from other predators. That forged the bond. Regardless of the reason, one thing is clear: this relationship was not just about food, it was about survival. And it was about finding ways to work together to ensure both species thrived. As the years passed, these early working dogs played pivotal roles in the lives of early human communities. Wolves, ever the loyal pack animals, began to display a deep sense of loyalty to the humans they interacted with. They would guard human settlements from other predators, often acting as sentinels at the edge of the camp, alert to any movement in the surrounding forest. In exchange, Humans provided them with food, shelter, and the opportunity to be part of the human community. Over time, these wolves began to adapt more fully to the human lifestyle, and their wild instincts giving way to new, cooperative behaviors. In essence, the bond between humans and wolves was based on a partnership where each species offered the other something it needed. Humans found themselves with better hunters, protectors, and companions. Wolves, in return, found themselves in a new world, one where survival was no longer just about hunting in the wild, but about adapting to a life intertwined with humans. As this partnership deepened, the line between predator and prey blurred, and the relationship evolved from mere coexistence to something more intimate. A bond that would eventually lead to the domesticated dogs we know today. But this transformation didn't happen all at once. It took time. Generations passed, and each new generation of wolves that came into contact with humans brought new behavioral traits. More sociability, more loyalty, more tolerance for human interaction. Slowly but surely, the traits that made wolves useful to humans began to shape the future of the species. The first working dogs were born out of this slow and steady transformation, becoming indispensable to human societies, not just for their physical capabilities, but for their loyalty and companionship. And so, the first bonds were formed, simple at first. But growing stronger with each passing year, wolves had begun to settle into their new role as partners in human life, and the door was wide open for the next phase of this remarkable relationship. The fire crackles softly, its embers glowing like the first sparks of a revolution. The wolves, now comfortably nestled within human settlements, have grown into something new. They are no longer the wild predators they once were. They have become part of the human world. Slowly, over many years, the transformation from wolf to dog began to take root. But what exactly happened to change these creatures so drastically? The key shift lies in the steady accumulation of behavioral and genetic changes. Wolves, who were once independent creatures of the wild, had started to adapt to human life in ways that were not only beneficial to humans, but to the wolves themselves. Through generations of living alongside humans, these wolves began to exhibit characteristics that set them apart from their wild counterparts. Over time, these traits like smaller teeth, smaller skulls, and more docile behavior became more pronounced. But the change wasn't just physical. Wolves that were more sociable, more willing to interact with humans, were the ones who thrived in human settlements. These early wolves learned that the best chance of survival didn't lie in hunting in the wild, but in cooperating with humans. They began to show more cooperative behaviors, working alongside humans to hunt, guard, and protect. Over generations, the more friendly and adaptable wolves were able to pass on these traits to their offspring, while the more aggressive and independent wolves faded out of the gene pool. It wasn't just a shift in behavior, it was a fundamental change in how wolves interacted with the world. Their dependence on humans grew. The same instincts that made them skilled hunters in the wild also made them invaluable to early human communities. Wolves, who had once roamed free, now stayed closer to humans, not just for food but for companionship and mutual protection. This gradual shift is what laid the groundwork for the first true dogs. They were no longer simply wolves. They were something new, something that humans could rely on. Over time, this transformation began to reflect in their roles within human society. Early humans recognized the value of these animals not just as hunters or protectors, but as companions. Wolves that had once lived in the shadows of human settlements, only tolerated for their utility, were now welcome in the homes of early humans. They became integral members of the human family, providing not only security and help with hunting, but also companionship. The first dogs weren't just working animals, they were beginning to take on the role of friends, partners, and loyal companions. This shift marked a pivotal moment in the relationship between humans and wolves. The process of domestication wasn't quick or easy. It was a slow, gradual transformation that unfolded over thousands of years, but the result was clear. Wolves had become dogs, and their role in human society would never be the same again. Dogs weren't just helping with tasks anymore. They were becoming emotional companions, part of the family, the simple, practical relationship that began with wolves and humans sitting around the fire, surviving side by side, had evolved into something much deeper. Now, as you sit by the fire, surrounded by these animals who have evolved from the fierce wolves of old, you can see how far the bond has come. The wolves have been transformed, not just in body but in spirit. They are no longer the wild creatures who hunted for survival. They have become the faithful companions that humans have relied on for thousands of years. The firelight dances across the darkened forest, its glow now a familiar warmth. The wolves, though still wild in many ways, have become something more than just pack hunters. They are the ancestors of the dogs we know today, still with the instinctual knowledge of their wild origins, but now shaped by generations of coexistence with humans. The bond between human and wolf is deeper now, more intricate. But what makes a wolf decide to stay with humans instead of roaming free in the wilderness? It all comes down to one thing: survival. Wolves, like any other creature, are driven by the need to eat, to find shelter, and to protect their packs. In the early days, it would have been much easier for a wolf to stick close to a human settlement than to venture into the unknown wilderness. Early humans weren't just skilled hunters, they were survivors. They knew how to find food, make fire, and defend themselves. Wolves quickly recognized this. By staying close to humans, they gained access to a more predictable food source: leftovers from hunts and the scraps that humans discarded. The immediate reward of food would have been a strong draw, but the longer-term benefits, like protection from other predators and more stable living conditions, would have made this arrangement even more attractive. The question remains, was this arrangement purely based on survival, or was there something more happening? Could the wolves have felt the pull of companionship, or was it simply instinct to stay where food and shelter were guaranteed? Historians still debate this. Some believe that wolves were simply opportunistic, taking advantage of a food source they didn't have to work so hard to obtain. Others suggest that the bond between wolves and humans may have been more emotional, with wolves beginning to trust humans as a source of safety and care. Whatever the cause, it's clear that over time, wolves began to form relationships with humans that went beyond mere survival. Wolves became more attuned to human needs and behaviors. They learned to listen to the cues humans gave. Whether it was a hand signal to stop or a command to fetch, wolves, with their pack mentality, found something in humans that mirrored their own social structure. Humans, in turn, began to understand the behavior of the wolves better, recognizing their intelligence and loyalty. This reciprocal relationship created a foundation for something far more profound than just survival. It created a partnership, but even as wolves began to adapt to human life, they were still wolves at heart. They maintained their wild instincts, tracking prey, protecting their territory, and maintaining their pack structure. These traits, however, didn't work against them. Instead, they became valuable assets. Wolves could help humans with hunting, guarding, and protecting their homes. As wolves became more integrated into human life, these traits were honed and refined, eventually giving rise to the diverse roles that dogs would play in human society. The first true dogs were born out of this slow, organic process. They were the wolves that had learned to live alongside humans, evolving into creatures that were less fearful, more cooperative, and more capable of building relationships with humans. These early dogs were not just workers, they were the first glimpses of what we would come to understand as family pets. And while their original role was rooted in practical needs, hunting, guarding, and protecting, They were already beginning to form the emotional bond with humans that would define the modern dog-human relationship. Over time, as wolves became more integrated into human life, they evolved into dogs, not just helpers, but companions. The once predatory animals who had lived in fear of humans were now forming a bond that would carry through the millennia. The transformation from wolf to dog wasn't just a change in behavior, it was a profound shift in the way two species would relate to one another. No longer enemies, wolves had become our first faithful companions. The fire burns softly, and the night is filled with the gentle sounds of the world at rest. Around the campfire, the wolves that have now become our companions sit quietly, watching. They are no longer the fierce predators of the wild, but animals who have adapted, learned, and transformed alongside humans. It's easy to forget that these creatures were once feared, hunted, and avoided. Now, they are part of the very fabric of human life, working, playing, and living side by side with us. The transformation from wild wolf to domesticated dog didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a sudden shift, but rather a gradual evolution, marked by the growing interdependence between humans and wolves. This evolution didn't just change the behavior of the wolves, it changed the roles they played in human society. What began as a functional relationship, where wolves helped humans hunt and guard, slowly shifted into something deeper, something more emotional. Dogs became not just protectors and workers, but companions, family members. Humans, for their part, began to see the value in the relationship. Dogs were no longer just tools for hunting or guarding. They were a source of emotional connection. They offered loyalty, affection, and comfort, qualities that humans had never expected from a predator. Over time, these early dogs began to play a variety of roles in human societies, roles that went far beyond what anyone could have predicted when the first wolf stepped into the camp. The first working dogs were used for practical purposes: hunting, herding, and guarding. These dogs were essential to the survival of early humans, helping them secure food and protect their homes. But as the bond between humans and dogs deepened, these roles expanded. Dogs became more than just workers. They became partners in a shared life. They helped with daily tasks, provided protection, and even offered companionship. They became the quiet presence at the door, the comforting figure at the hearth, and the loyal companion at the end of a long day. The transformation from working dog to companion dog was gradual, but it was undeniable, and it wasn't just in one part of the world. Dogs began to spread across the globe, adapting to different climates and cultures, becoming part of societies from the deserts of the Middle East to the cold tundras of the North. They adapted to the needs of their human companions. Whether it was herding sheep in the highlands of Scotland, pulling sleds in the Arctic, or guarding homes in the heart of ancient civilizations, each new task they took on refined their abilities and solidified their place in human history. Dogs were no longer just animals living beside humans. They had become a central part of human life, playing roles that spanned every aspect of society. But even as dogs evolved to fill these new roles, they still carried with them the legacy of their wolf ancestors. The pack mentality that once defined wolves remained at the core of dog behavior. Dogs still thrived in social structures, whether within human families or in their interactions with other animals. This deep-rooted social structure is what made dogs so well suited to live alongside humans. They were pack animals at heart, and humans became their pack. As the centuries passed, the bond between humans and dogs grew stronger. Dogs were no longer just survivors in a human world. They had become beloved members of that world. Their loyalty, intelligence, and companionship had transformed them from wild animals into creatures that were as much a part of human life as any other family member. The relationship between humans and dogs had evolved into something extraordinary, something that still endures today. Thousands of years after the first wolves stepped into the light of the fire, The first dogs may have started out as helpers, but over time, they became something much more. They became symbols of loyalty, love, and partnership. And with each passing generation, the bond between humans and dogs grew deeper until it became one of the most enduring and unique relationships in the history of humanity. The fire flickers and fades, casting long shadows across the quiet scene. The wolves, once creatures of the wild, have now evolved into something else entirely. They have become companions, helpers, and even family members. This bond, formed slowly over millennia, has withstood the test of time, but it wasn't always this way. Dogs weren't always seen as the beloved companions they are today. In fact, their role in human society has shifted dramatically over the centuries. In ancient civilizations, dogs played a vital role not just as companions, but as essential working animals. They helped with hunting, guarding, and herding, filling practical roles that made life easier for early humans. But as societies grew and changed, so too did the role of the dog. In places like Egypt and Mesopotamia, dogs were revered as symbols of protection, loyalty, and even divinity. The ancient Egyptians, for example, often depicted dogs as protectors of the home and family. They even buried their dogs with elaborate tombs, honoring them in the afterlife as they would human family members. Historians still argue about the exact nature of the dog's role in ancient civilizations. Some believe that dogs were first kept primarily for their utility, helping with tasks like hunting and guarding. Others suggest that dogs were seen as spiritual beings, symbols of protection and loyalty in cultures where gods and animals were often intertwined. Regardless of the exact reasoning, one thing is certain: dogs were deeply integrated into the lives of ancient people, both as practical helpers and as revered beings. As time passed and human societies became more complex, the role of dogs continued to evolve. In medieval Europe, for example, dogs were often kept as hunting companions and watchdogs. The aristocracy and royalty began to keep specific breeds for certain tasks, leading to the development of the first distinct dog breeds. The use of dogs in royal courts and the establishment of breeding practices helped further solidify their status in society. They were no longer just wild animals tamed by humans. They were symbols of wealth, status, and power. In some cultures, dogs also took on a more spiritual role. In ancient Greece, for instance, the goddess Artemis, the goddess of hunting, was often depicted with a dog by her side. Dogs were also believed to be guardians of the afterlife. In ancient Rome, the belief in the hound of hell persisted, with dogs seen as protectors against evil spirits and dark forces. These ancient beliefs spoke to the deeper, more mystical qualities that dogs had come to embody. By the time we reached the modern era, dogs had moved far beyond their roles as working animals or symbolic creatures. They had become true companions, filling emotional roles that went beyond practicality. In the 19th and 20th centuries, as society grew more urbanized, the role of the dog shifted again. No longer strictly working animals, dogs began to be seen as loyal companions who could provide comfort, companionship, and unconditional love. They became family members in a way that no one could have predicted back when wolves first began to share the warmth of the campfire. This shift in the perception of dogs was especially evident in the rise of pet ownership as a cultural phenomenon. People began to view their dogs not as tools for labor, but as beloved family members. The role of the dog as a companion, someone who could offer comfort, support, and a sense of connection, became more important than ever. Today, dogs are not only integral to family life, but are often considered essential parts of mental health and well-being, providing emotional support, companionship, and unconditional love. But despite these changes, the legacy of the wolf, their intelligence, their loyalty, and their pack mentality remains at the heart of what makes a dog so special. The bond that was formed so long ago around the flickering campfire when wolves first stepped into human society, has grown into something far deeper and more profound. It is a bond that has lasted through centuries of change, adapting to new roles and challenges, but always rooted in the same essential qualities that first made wolves the loyal companions of humanity. Dogs may no longer roam the wilds with wolves, but the deep, abiding bond between humans and dogs remains as strong as ever, a testament to the enduring legacy of those first wolves that stepped into the firelight all those thousands of years ago. The night is calm now, the fire a soft glow as the wolves, transformed into loyal companions, rest beside you. Time has shaped them, just as time has shaped the humans who now call them family. The wolves, once wild and untamed, are now intertwined in the very essence of human life, from ancient civilizations to the modern world. But how did they go from being essential working animals to the many breeds we recognize today? The evolution of dog breeds is a story of both nature and nurture, with humans as active participants in the shaping of what we now consider man's best friend. As early humans began to recognize the different qualities of the wolves living beside them, they began to selectively breed them for specific traits. Some dogs were bred for hunting, others for guarding, and still others for herding. Over time, this selective breeding gave rise to a wide variety of dog breeds, each tailored to specific tasks and environments. The first true breeds of dogs began to appear around 4 years ago, with early records showing that ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans kept dogs for specific roles, including guarding temples, herding livestock, and even as royal companions. One of the earliest documented breeds was the Egyptian greyhound, a swift hunting dog bred for its speed and agility. These dogs were highly prized by the Egyptians and were often depicted in artwork alongside pharaohs. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, the Molossian hound, a large, powerful dog, was bred to guard livestock and homes, as well as fight in the arena. These early dogs were not just pets. They were integral to the survival and prosperity of the civilizations that kept them. Over time, as societies evolved and urbanization took hold, the role of the dog shifted once again. No longer were dogs strictly working animals. They became symbols of status, loyalty, and companionship. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the concept of dog breeds became more formalized with the establishment of breed standards and dog shows. The Kennel Club, founded in the United Kingdom in 1873, played a pivotal role in organizing and categorizing dog breeds, creating a system that allowed for the selective breeding of dogs to fit specific physical and behavioral traits. The rise of purebred dogs was a product of both scientific breeding and cultural shifts. As people moved away from rural, agrarian lifestyles and into cities, dogs began to fill new roles, not just as workers, but as companions and symbols of wealth. The aristocracy, in particular, began to breed dogs for specific aesthetic qualities and companionship rather than utility. This period gave rise to the popularization of breeds like the poodle, the dachshund, and the Cavalier King. Charles Spaniel, dogs that were bred for their looks as much as their personalities. The invention of the modern dog show, where dogs were judged based on adherence to breed standards, further cemented the idea of the purebred dog as an ideal. However, not all dogs fit into these neat categories. Mixed breed dogs, often overlooked in the pursuit of purebred perfection, continue to be beloved by their owners, proving that the bond between human and dog wasn't solely based on lineage. In fact, many people found that their mixed breed dogs were just as loyal, loving, and capable as their purebred counterparts. But this era of formalized breeding also brought with it challenges. As specific breeds became more popular, health problems began to emerge due to the concentration of genetic traits in a small gene pool. This is particularly true of some of the more extreme breed standards, where traits like the flat faces of bulldogs or the exaggerated bodies of dachshunds led to physical health issues. As awareness of these problems grew, the role of breeders began to shift once again, with a greater focus on breeding for health, temperament, and longevity rather than just appearance. Despite the challenges that came with the rise of purebred dogs, one thing remains unchanged: the bond between humans and dogs, whether purebred or mixed. Every dog carries with it the legacy of those first wolves who sat by the fire, forming the bond that has lasted for millennia. Dogs, in all their forms, continue to play a vital role in human life. Whether they're herding sheep on a farm, serving as therapy animals for those in need, or simply curling up at our feet at the end of a long day, the dogs of today are the descendants of the first wolves who walked alongside early humans, sharing the same qualities that made them both feared and revered. They are not just animals, they are companions, friends, and family. And as the years go by, the bond between humans and dogs only grows stronger, proving that the connection formed so long ago was not just a matter of survival, but a profound, lasting relationship built on trust, loyalty, and love. The night continues to settle around you, the embers of the fire gently dying down as the first light of dawn begins to stretch across the sky. The wolves-turned dogs now rest beside their human companions, still bearing the echoes of their wild ancestors in the way they move, communicate, and bond with the humans who have shared their journey for thousands of years. As we reflect on this long, intertwined history, we come to a point where the wolf's transformation into a dog has not just been biological, it has been deeply cultural. But this journey hasn't been entirely smooth, nor has it been one-sided. Historians still argue whether it was the wolves or humans who truly controlled the domestication process. Some claim that it was the wolves' natural behavior, cooperative pack dynamics, and intelligence that made them more likely to bond with humans, and that these early wolves took the initiative to approach human settlements. Others suggest that it was the humans who set the terms of the relationship, offering food, shelter, and protection in exchange for hunting and guarding help. Still, some argue that the domestication of dogs was purely the result of accidental cooperation. Humans and wolves simply found each other out of necessity, and the process of domestication unfolded slowly over thousands of years. Whatever the true story, the fact remains that wolves and humans became intertwined in a way that few other species have. Over time, certain wolves, through selective interactions with humans, began to evolve in ways that made them not just tolerant of human presence, but dependent on it. Some scholars suggest that it was the inherent social structure of the wolf pack that made this relationship possible. Wolves are social creatures, with a complex structure that involves cooperation, communication, and loyalty. This inherent social nature may have made it easier for them to form bonds with humans, who were also social creatures. In this way, wolves were already predisposed to work with humans, at least more so than, say, solitary animals like lions or tigers. The debate continues. Was it humans who shaped the wolves? Or were wolves the ones who shaped humans? It's likely that the truth lies somewhere in between. After all, domestication is not just a process of taming an animal. It is a process of mutual adaptation. Humans and wolves both learned from each other. Humans learned to trust the wolves that showed loyalty and usefulness, while the wolves learned to trust humans, who provided a steady source of food and protection. This cooperative relationship didn't just change the wolves, it also changed humans, leading to a closer relationship with animals in general. This mutual adaptation is what led to the dog as we know it today. But even as the relationship deepened, and dogs began to take on more defined roles in human societies, there were still moments where the wolf's wild nature would emerge. Despite thousands of years of domestication, the genetic and behavioral traits that made wolves such successful predators still lingered in their descendants. The instinct to chase, to protect, to hunt. These traits were embedded in the very DNA of dogs. In the modern world, this duality still exists. Dogs are no longer wild, but they still retain flashes of their ancestors' behavior. The protective instinct, the keen sense of smell, the desire to chase, all of these traits are still present in the dogs we share our homes with today, but they also embody the loyalty, companionship, and affection that were cultivated over generations of living side by side with humans. It's a complex relationship, one built on trust, understanding, and mutual benefit. But it's also a relationship that carries the legacy of the wild wolves who once roamed freely in the forests and plains. So, when we look at our dogs today, it's not just the result of thousands of years of breeding, but also a reflection of the deep, ancient bond that was forged around campfires long ago. The domesticated dog is both a reflection of the wild wolf and a testament to the power of partnership. It is the product of an unspoken agreement between two species who learn to work together, survive together, and, in time, become inseparable companions. As you sit with your dog, you might not realize it, but you are part of a legacy that stretches back millennia to a time when the first wolves stepped into the light of the fire and began the journey of becoming man's best friend. This bond, which began with a single step toward trust, continues to grow and evolve, and it will likely endure for many generations to come. As the fire's embers dim and the quiet of the night settles in, you can't help but feel the weight of history resting gently in the air. The relationship between humans and dogs, formed over thousands of years, is not just a story of survival, it is a story of companionship, trust, and a bond that defies time. The once wild, untamed wolves that roam the forests and plains have been transformed into the beloved companions we know today. But their journey is far from over. In the modern world, the role of dogs has evolved in ways that even the early wolves could never have imagined. No longer just protectors, hunters, or herders, dogs have become integral to the emotional and psychological well-being of millions of people worldwide. The roles dogs play in human society today are as varied as their breeds. Dogs are service animals, therapy companions, emotional support animals, and even celebrities in their own right. But beyond the titles and tasks, dogs remain what they have always been: loyal, loving companions who offer unconditional support. In fact, the bond between humans and dogs has grown so profound that modern research now highlights the significant impact that dogs have on human health. Studies have shown that interacting with dogs can lower stress levels, reduce feelings of anxiety, and even lower blood pressure. Dogs can sense their owner's emotions, providing comfort during moments of sadness or loneliness. It's as if the deep, ancient connection between wolves and humans has translated into an emotional language that transcends words. This bond is not one-sided, of course. Dogs, like their wolf ancestors, thrive on social interaction. They are pack animals, and in many ways, humans have become their pack. The loyalty that was forged around ancient campfires still runs deep in the relationship between dogs and humans today. It's a loyalty that has led to dogs becoming family members in the truest sense of the word. They share our lives, our homes, and our hearts. While the modern world has brought with it a shift in how we interact with dogs, the core of that relationship remains unchanged. Dogs continue to be symbols of loyalty, bravery, and love, whether as a comforting presence in a family home, a guide for a person with a disability, or a working partner in law enforcement or search and rescue. Dogs continue to serve humans in ways that no other animal can. They are our constant companions, showing us what it means to be devoted, patient, and loving, no matter the circumstances. But what does the future hold for our canine companions? As society continues to evolve, so too will the roles that dogs play in our lives. New advancements in technology may lead to dogs taking on even more specialized roles. serving in fields like therapy for PTSD, working as detection dogs for new diseases, or even acting as emotional assistants in spaces like schools or workplaces. One thing is certain: as our understanding of dogs deepens, so too will our appreciation for the invaluable bond we share with them. The future may bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new ways for dogs to contribute to human society, but one thing will remain the same. The connection between humans and dogs will continue to be rooted in the same trust, loyalty, and companionship that began thousands of years ago with the first wolves that wandered near our fires. As you sit quietly beside your dog, the flickering of the fire still warm in your mind, you realize that this bond, this relationship, has shaped both species in ways that will last for generations to come. It is more than just survival. It is a testament to the power of partnership, understanding, and love. From the first wolves that crept into human campsites to the dogs that walk beside us today, the journey has been long, but the destination was always the same: to find a place beside each other. As companions, as family, the fire is now just a memory, the last traces of warmth fading into the cool, quiet night. But the bond between you and your dog remains as strong as ever. A connection that spans not just your lifetime, but thousands of years of shared history. The wolf that became the dog has evolved in countless ways, adapting to the changing needs of human society. From wild predators to loyal companions, dogs have played a role in shaping human culture just as much as we have shaped them. But what is it about this bond that has stood the test of time? The relationship between humans and dogs is unique in the animal kingdom. Unlike any other domesticated species, dogs have become deeply integrated into our daily lives, our emotional landscapes, and even our identities. They are not just pets, they are partners, helpers, and friends. The loyalty they offer is unparalleled, and their ability to form deep emotional connections with humans has made them essential to our well-being. But how did this relationship become so profound? And how did dogs evolve into the special creatures we know today? The answer lies in the history of their domestication and the ways in which they've adapted to human life over millennia. Unlike other domesticated animals, dogs have lived alongside humans for longer than any other species. Wolves, who were once competitors and predators, became helpers, protectors, and eventually companions. This transition didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual, mutual process that unfolded over thousands of years. Early humans needed the wolves' keen senses and hunting skills, and the wolves, in turn, benefited from the steady supply of food, shelter, and protection offered by humans. As wolves and humans adapted to each other, they began to form the bond that would eventually give rise to the dog. But the domestication of dogs wasn't just about survival, it was also about connection. Dogs, unlike any other domesticated animal, have a unique ability to form emotional bonds with humans. Their capacity to understand human emotions, read our body language, and respond to our needs has made them more than just helpers. They've become true companions. This deep emotional connection is what has allowed dogs to thrive in human society, both as working animals and as family members. As human society evolved, so too did the role of the dog. From ancient civilizations to modern times, dogs have adapted to new tasks, roles, and environments. They've worked as hunters, herders, guards, and even royalty's companions. But with each new task, dogs have continued to evolve emotionally, becoming more attuned to human feelings and more connected to our daily lives. Today, dogs serve in a wide range of roles, from therapy animals to service dogs, police dogs to emotional support companions. They are not just a part of our homes, they are integral to our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. This emotional depth, combined with their remarkable intelligence and social nature, is what makes dogs unique. While other animals can form bonds with humans, no other species has integrated so fully into human life. From the wolf that once sat by the fire, wary but curious, to the dog that now rests at your feet, the journey has been one of deep connection. Dogs have become more than just animals. They are a part of our family, a testament to the power of mutual trust, loyalty, and understanding. The future of this relationship holds endless possibilities. As we continue to deepen our understanding of dogs' emotional and cognitive abilities, we may find even more ways for them to contribute to our lives. From assisting in mental health care to becoming partners in futuristic technologies, dogs are likely to continue evolving alongside us, just as they have for thousands of years. But no matter where the future takes us, the fundamental bond between human and dog will remain unchanged. It will always be rooted in the shared history that began when the first wolves walked into the light of the fire, signaling the start of a partnership that has stood the test of time. As you sit with your dog now, looking back over the centuries of shared history, you realize just how much this bond means. From the wild forest to the modern world, the relationship between humans and dogs has grown into something extraordinary. It is a reminder of the power of trust, the strength of loyalty, and the beauty of companionship. Values that have endured from the first days when wolves walked alongside early humans. The morning light begins to seep into the world, casting a gentle glow across the landscape. The wolves turned dogs, nestled beside you, remain still, their breathing slow and steady as the sun rises, marking another day of this enduring partnership. As you look at your dog, it's easy to forget that this creature, this loyal companion, once shared the wilderness with its wild ancestors, the wolves. The journey from predator to companion has been long, but it has also been transformative for both humans and dogs. Now, in this modern age, dogs are not just animals. They are partners in ways no one could have predicted. The roles that dogs play in modern society are as diverse as they are essential. While the dog's ancestral purpose in human life was rooted in work, herding, hunting, guarding, the relationship between humans and dogs has evolved in ways that go far beyond these traditional roles. In the 21st century, dogs are increasingly seen as emotional partners, providing companionship, comfort, and support in a world that can often feel disconnected and isolating. Service dogs, for example, assist people with disabilities, helping them navigate the world with more independence. Therapy dogs offer emotional comfort to those in hospitals, schools, and nursing homes, providing a sense of relief and warmth during difficult times. Emotional support animals. ESAs help people cope with mental health challenges, offering unconditional love and companionship in moments of anxiety, depression, or trauma. These roles are just a glimpse into the many ways dogs have adapted to modern human needs, becoming not just helpers, but healers. But it's not just in specialized roles that dogs shine. In everyday life, dogs are companions who offer something that no other species can: unconditional love. The bond between humans and dogs is unlike any other. Their ability to tune into human emotions, to sense our moods and respond to our needs, has made them indispensable members of our families. Dogs have a unique way of making us feel seen and understood, offering a quiet, non-judgmental presence that soothes even the most troubled minds. The relationship between humans and dogs has become so deeply intertwined that, for many people, life without a dog seems unimaginable. From city apartments to rural farms, dogs are found in homes across the world, a testament to how far we have come together. The world of the modern dog is one of comfort, care, and love, a world far removed from the wild forests and open plains where their wolf ancestors once roamed. Yet, despite the evolution of their roles, dogs have not lost the instincts and qualities that made them such valuable partners to early humans. The loyalty, the pack mentality, and the protective nature of their wolf ancestors are still present in every dog. Dogs still offer a sense of security and companionship, just as they did for those first humans sitting around the fire, watching the wolves approach. But there's another facet of this relationship that has yet to be explored: the emotional intelligence of dogs. Recent studies have begun to reveal just how aware dogs are of their owners' emotions. They can detect changes in our mood, respond to our stress, and even show empathy when we are feeling down. This ability to connect emotionally with humans has led to a growing field of research, with scientists uncovering new insights into how dogs perceive and react to human emotions. It turns out that the bond we share with dogs is not just one of loyalty and companionship, it is a deep, emotional connection that runs through every aspect of their behavior. As the bond deepens between humans and dogs, the role of dogs in society will likely continue to evolve. New roles may emerge, driven by technological advances or shifts in societal needs. But the core of the relationship, the mutual love and trust, will remain unchanged. Just as wolves and humans once shared a campfire, so too will humans and dogs continue to share their lives in the years to come, finding new ways to grow, adapt, and care for one another. As you sit with your dog now, reflecting on how far this relationship has come, you realize that it's more than just a partnership. It's a living testament to the enduring power of companionship. From the first wolves that shared the warmth of the firelight to the dogs that lie beside us today, the bond between our species has not just survived, it has flourished. And as long as there are fires to sit by and hearts to share, the story of the wolf's transformation into dog will continue to unfold, chapter by chapter, with each new generation of humans and dogs. The light of dawn stretches farther, now bathing the landscape in a golden hue. And the once flickering fire is now nothing more than a memory, its warmth lingering in the air. But beside you, your dog remains, a living embodiment of a bond forged over millennia. This relationship, which began with wolves stepping into the warmth of a human campfire, has traveled through time, adapting and evolving with each new chapter of human history. The journey has been a long one, but it is far from over. As we look to the future, the role of dogs in human society continues to shift. No longer just loyal companions and helpers, dogs are increasingly seen as vital members of our families, playing a central role in shaping our lives in ways that may have been unimaginable in the days when wolves first began to roam near humans. This future, however, is not just about dogs continuing the roles they have played for centuries. It's about discovering new, innovative ways for dogs to enhance our lives in ways both practical and emotional. The continued integration of dogs into modern society is nothing short of fascinating. As humans continue to push the boundaries of technology and understanding, dogs are finding new roles in areas like science, therapy, and even technology itself. We've already seen dogs serve in groundbreaking roles, such as being trained to detect cancer and other diseases by sniffing human breath, blood, and skin. Their incredible sense of smell, honed over thousands of years of hunting and tracking, and is being applied in ways that save lives and deepen our understanding of health and wellness. In addition to their roles in medicine and science, dogs are also being integrated into modern technology in increasingly fascinating ways. For example, researchers are exploring how dogs might play a role in future smart homes, where they could use their ability to read human emotions and respond to commands in novel ways. Imagine a world where your dog not only comforts you during stressful moments, but also helps regulate your environment by detecting changes in your mood and responding with tailored actions, such as adjusting lighting, temperature, or even playing music to calm you. This future could lead to an entirely new era of companionship, where dogs are not just part of the family, but also active participants in the technology-driven world. Moreover, as the understanding of the bond between dogs and humans continues to deepen, it's likely that new roles will emerge, especially in the realm of mental health. Dogs have long been known for their ability to provide comfort and emotional support. However, Recent research is showing that their emotional intelligence extends far beyond simple companionship. As mental health issues become a growing concern in many societies, dogs may play an even more critical role in helping individuals cope with stress, anxiety, and depression. There is already a growing movement to train dogs specifically for therapeutic purposes, and the future could see more widespread use of dogs in therapeutic settings, helping people navigate the challenges of mental health with their unspoken empathy and connection. Of course, as society advances, so too must our understanding of the responsibilities that come with keeping dogs. Ethical considerations about breeding, care, and the treatment of dogs have evolved significantly, and as we move forward, these discussions will become even more important. Ensuring that dogs are treated with respect and love, and that their welfare is prioritized, will be crucial to maintaining the trust that has been built over thousands of years. The connection between humans and dogs has already spanned centuries. But as we look toward the future, it's clear that the potential for this relationship to grow and evolve is limitless. From new roles in therapy and technology to deeper emotional connections and even greater integration into family life, dogs are continuing to evolve alongside us in ways that will surprise and enrich us for generations to come. But no matter how much time passes or how much technology changes, one thing will always remain constant: the enduring bond between human and dog. It is a bond rooted in trust, loyalty, and love. A bond that began with a wild wolf and a human sitting by the fire and has blossomed into a partnership that will continue to shape both species for generations to come. As the sun rises higher, casting its warm glow across the land, you sit with your dog beside you. The world is changing, but the love and companionship that has existed between humans and dogs for thousands of years remains steadfast. And as long as we continue to walk through life with our dogs by our side, the story of how wolves became our best friends will never truly end. The day has begun, with the sun casting its golden light across the landscape. But the story of the wolves and their transformation into our beloved dogs is far from over. As you sit beside your dog, watching the world wake up around you, you can't help but reflect on the incredible journey both species have taken together. From wild predators that once roamed the earth to loyal companions who share our homes, dogs have become so much more than we ever expected. And yet, even now, their role in our lives continues to evolve. The legacy of the first wolves that stepped cautiously into human camps has shaped the future of both species in ways no one could have predicted. What started as a simple act of survival, humans and wolves finding ways to coexist, has blossomed into one of the most unique and profound relationships in the animal kingdom. For thousands of years, dogs have been our partners, our helpers, and our friends. And as we move forward into the future, their role in human society will continue to grow and change in ways that only time will reveal. As we reach the end of this journey together, it's important to remember that the bond between humans and dogs is not just about companionship or loyalty. It's about something deeper. It's about the connection between two species that have learned to adapt to each other, to rely on each other, and to find strength in each other. The relationship between humans and dogs is a testament to the power of cooperation, empathy, and love. It's a reminder that we are not alone in this world, that we have partners who will walk with us through thick and thin, no matter what the future holds. And so, as the world continues to change, as technology advances, and as new challenges arise, one thing will remain constant: the bond between humans and dogs. From the very first wolves that sat by the fire with early humans to the dogs who share our homes today, this partnership has stood the test of time. It has been built on trust, loyalty, and a shared history that continues to unfold with each passing day. As you sit in the quiet company of your dog, watching the world come alive around you, you realize that the journey is far from over. The bond between humans and dogs is as strong as ever, and it will continue to shape both our lives for generations to come. So, as we say goodbye to this story, remember that the journey of wolves becoming dogs is not just a chapter in history, it is a living, breathing partnership that continues to thrive, evolve, and grow each and every day. Now, let the warmth of the sun and the comforting presence of your dog fill you with peace, knowing that the bond between your species, forged over thousands of years, will continue to endure as unbreakable as ever.